Hi, my name is Emily Whitty, and I am going to give a presentation on how to help struggling readers in our schools. I'm going to be talking today about the importance of reading, how to identify struggling readers, the essential components of reading, and then lastly, ways to help these struggling readers. I found this quote by Kate DiCamillo that states, "Reading should not be presented to children as a chore or a duty. It should be offered as a gift." And I love that quote because too often these struggling readers don't like reading. They think it is boring or a punishment. And we need to teach them that this is not a chore. It is a gift to be able to read, and you can really do so much with the knowledge of reading. So let's continue. The first thing I found was really the importance of reading. Why is reading important? Well, reading proficiency does matter. 74% of third grade students reading below grade level proficiency will never catch up to their on-level peers. And about 16% of children who are not reading proficiently by the end of third grade do not graduate from high school on time. In fact, at a rate 4 times greater than that for the proficient readers. Also, if we look at our nation's report card, in 2017 is our latest data, and it states that 63% of 4th grade students read below a proficiency level. Also, from this report, it shows that our reading levels are staying stagnant in the United States. And we need to start growing, and we need to start doing something to make our students better readers. First thing to do that, of course, is to identify struggling readers. Well, learning to read is a challenge for many students. We know that from the statistics you saw in the previous slide. Luckily, most reading problems can be prevented. Identifying students, however, with reading problems is not always an easy or quick process. In fact, once they are identified, it may take years to get them caught up to their peers. So really the key to this is early identification and good intervention. The earlier you can find these reading problems and start at them, the easier it's going to be to catch up to their peers, and the easier reading will be in the future for these students. Going along with identifying these struggling students, we have to give them assessments. That is how we identify these kids. However, assessments should be used to inform and improve instruction for our students. So we need to take this, we shouldn't just give assessments to give. We need to use these assessments for their data and find things that help these students. There are 3 types of assessment we really look at when identifying students with reading difficulties, and I created this fun little presentation from Powtoons about these 3 different types. So enjoy. Oops, sorry. So again, looking at those 3 types of assessments, the first step we need to use is the screening assessment. We screen all of our students. It's a universal screener to identify who needs the intervention. So what students are proficient, what students are at risk, and what students are below proficiency in their hitting their benchmark, hitting their reading scores. Taking those at risk and below proficient readers, we then give them a diagnostic assessment. From that diagnostic assessment, we can find what specific instruction or intervention is needed for these students. And really what we are looking for is their lowest missing skill. After we identify that lowest missing skill and what intervention we are going to provide them, we then progress monitor them, step 3. We progress monitor them at least once a week or once every 2 weeks to identify, is the instruction working? So is that progress monitoring slope going up or is it going down? And we need to relook at what instruction and intervention materials we are using for this student. So this assessment, the diagnostic assessment, it goes right in with our response to intervention that so many schools are using now. Everyone is getting that Tier 1 support. It is universal. It's what all students are getting through our core curriculum. So after we give those that universal screener and we find those kids who do need that extra support, they are then moved into tier 2 support, which is some selected students that are lagging behind their peers and require some form of intervention. They are missing a skill that they need to get. From there, we use progress monitoring to determine if kids need to move into Tier 3, which is pretty intensive interventions. It might even be starting to look at a student who might need special education services as well. So using that diagnostic assessment, that Tier 2 instruction, we need to see what component of reading these students are missing. So where is their lowest skill? We have to teach phonics before we can teach comprehension. So when we find that lowest skill, whether it's phonemic awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, that is where our intervention needs to start. If our student is low in phonics, that means that phonics instruction needs to be provided. That phonics instruction is going to help the child decode words by recognizing the sounds that accompany letters and letter patterns. Phonics instruction also increases fluency by helping children read more accurately and with ease. A lot of times in phonics, we incorporate phonics games, letter sound cards, letter sound boxes, stomping, clapping, tapping, snapping these sounds, using tongue twisters, different kinds of card games. We also look at word study. We do a lot of word sorts, word work, writing around the room, trying to find and identify those patterns that make different phonics sounds, whether it be a one letter that makes maybe a short vowel sound, vowel teams, long vowel sounds, all of that fun phonics stuff. We can go look for that. A quote by Rosalind Cooter says that word study is critical in the early years, pre-K through second grade, and is strongly related to early word reading ability. Word study lays the groundwork for all elementary reading and becomes even more important through students' secondary schooling. If they do not have a deficit in phonics, we then look at their vocabulary. Well, vocabulary knowledge increases comprehension, which is essential to children's ability to do well in school. Greater vocabulary increases a child's ability to read and write with fluency. Some vocabulary activities that teachers use is a Frayer model, which are the 4 boxes. And oftentimes it is students writing a friendly definition, maybe drawing or sketching the word, thinking of examples of the word, and also thinking of non-examples of the word. There's also a game called I'm Thinking Of, where maybe a teacher or a student has been called on to say, I'm thinking of a word that means dangerous. and the students in the class have to figure out which of their vocabulary words means dangerous. There's also clapping, chanting, and writing these vocabulary words. Doing the $10,000 pyramid, which is just like the game show and a lot like the I'm Thinking Of, where they are describing different ways, describing these words in different ways to get the students to come up with the vocabulary word they are describing. Rupley, Logan, and Nicholas state that vocabulary is the glue that holds stories, ideas, and content together, making comprehension accessible for children. If they have vocabulary, they move on to fluency. And fluency includes consistent speed, accuracy, and the use of proper expression. Fluency is achieved when a child is no longer focusing on how to read. Some fluency strategies that that teachers can use include repeated readings, sustained silent reading, wide oral reading, choral and unison reading, scaffolded silent reading, and reader's theater. Fluency is linked directly to comprehension, and once it is achieved, a student can start focusing on the meaning of what they read, and that's provided by the National Reading Panel. Really what it means is that fluency can start, and once fluency, when the kids know how to decode words, when they are not using their cognitive capacities on decoding strategies, they can focus on fluency, and that fluency leads directly to that comprehension. So fluency is an important one. After fluency comes comprehension, and comprehension is important to success in academic and personal learning. Research-based strategies that focus on this instruction include activating the prior knowledge, questioning, analyzing text structure, visualizing, and summarizing. This was one of my favorite quotes I found by Rutzel Cooter. It is that comprehension is the very heart and soul of reading. We read to understand. That's why we read. So that is a good one. All right, and then lastly here, we have ways to help struggling readers and ways to help them try to close that gap between where they are and where their proficient peers are. One of the first things we need to do is provide personalized learning, using that assessment data to customize student learning. Next, we need to make sure we use differentiation and scaffolding. We need to give students support and help to reduce that frustration and discouragement that they have when they don't understand or when they need to complete a task that is hard for them. We need to give them those supports and strategies. Next, we need to use systematic and cumulative instruction. So we need to build upon prior learning. Like I said before, we can't teach comprehension before we make sure our students understand and know phonological awareness. We have to go in this systematic order. And we also need to give them multiple opportunities to practice these old and new skills. Lastly, we should provide multisensory and motivating activities. A lot of times those are the games and activities I included in the previous slides. We need to expose these learners to all the types of learning styles so they can choose which one works best for them. And we need to make sure we celebrate our successes. These students who struggle with reading might lack confidence. We need to make sure that those gains they are making are celebrated and they are feeling good. Lastly, I am going to end, of course, with another quote. Annie Sullivan states that people seldom see the halting and painful steps by which the most insignificant success is achieved. And I think that's so important for us teachers to remember. It's that all of these outside people, the people looking at our data, these high up administrators, the government, all of these people, they don't see these hard steps that we do every day to just make maybe just a little bit of success. And they might think it's insignificant, learning the difference between a short vowel